morning, everyone. We are ready for our next presentation at Philips. We have a great one for you. Please join us. I guarantee you we're going to fill up quickly on this one. So if you'd like to have a spot in the front, please do. You can see we're going to be talking about patient safety in a connected world, a fireside chat with Dr. Carla Privett. Carla is now our recently named CEO here at Philips, and we have David Kirkpatrick here from Techonomy to interview her. So we're very excited. This is one we've been looking forward to. I know that we're going to get a pretty good crowd here, so I invite you to come on in and grab a spot, and we'll get ready to get started here in just a moment. All right. We've got one side filled up. I still have a couple more here. So if you're in the area, welcome. We've got a great presentation for you. I think you guys will find it of interest. So come on in. We want to try to fill up the seats here before we introduce David and Dr. Privett. But this one, I think you will get a lot out of. You can talk to or hear from the very senior leadership here at Philips, and it's a rare opportunity to do that in a trade show booth like this. So welcome. We'd love to have you join us. Don't worry about the camera. I promise you will not be on camera if you're seated. But we're going to try to fill these spots up here before we get underway. So if you are passing by, this is a good one, folks. But we have a whole range of great presentations that are happening here throughout the week in this forum area. If you'd like to get a copy of the schedule, you can pick one up right over there on the desk and see all the speakers and titles. They happen at the top of the hour, every hour. So please grab one of those and come back. Right now, though, we are only a few minutes away here, or maybe less than that. I'm just going to try to get these spots filled up. So, as I said, Dr. Privett is going to be here in just a moment, and she has just been named the Philips CEO. So if I don't fill the chairs, she's my new boss, I might be in trouble here. So I want to make sure I make that happen. I doubt I will be. But anyway, just in case I still would like to, I got two more spots. If you're passing by, come on in. As soon as I fill these spots, we'll get underway right away, I promise. You will not want to miss this one. This is one of the rare opportunities you'll see on a trade show floor to talk to someone who is senior leadership at Philips. As I said, Dr. Privett has just been named our CEO, and many of you, I'm sure, have heard of David Kirkpatrick, the founder and CEO of Techonomy. This is going to be a little fireside chat here. I've got two more spots open. Welcome, sir. Would you like to join us? Everyone is curious, but holding back. I understand. It's early in the morning. You know, you got to see how your day shakes out. I got one more here, though. As I said, I just want to go ahead and get a full crowd here to start out. So if you're passing by, this is going to be a good one. I promise you. And I'll be going away in just a moment here. But we'll take about 30 more seconds here if anyone is in the area. Welcome. Would you like to join us? We'd love to have you here. Feel free to grab a spot, and we'll go ahead and get underway. For those of you who are standing, we'll get underway now, and we'll keep it moving. But we're glad to have you here with us. So, again, this is the Philips Connected Health Forum. I'm Paul Traynor. I'm your host. Today and tomorrow we have a range of exciting sessions with outstanding speakers with topics from population health and care coordination and personal health to advanced analytics and clinical informatics. All of them happen right here in the forum at the top of every hour. You can pick up a schedule right there on the desk before you go. And now we're going to start our very special session, Patient Safety in a Connected World. This is a fireside chat with Dr. Carla Privett. Carla is our new CEO of Connected Care and Health Informatics here at Philips, and today she's going to be talking with David Kirkpatrick. Many of you may know David. He's the CEO of Techonomy, and they'll talk about how predictive analytics is playing a key role in anticipating issues and improving patient safety across the health continuum, and why almost 1 in 6 patients are facing unexpected complications now in the general ward. This is more critical than ever before. So please help me welcome them both now, Carla and David.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be talking here with Carla Privett, who has just this week been named the CEO of Connected Care and Healthcare Informatics at Philips, which is really running a huge swath of the Philips medical technology businesses. So, you know, I have been really struck, Carla, when I've been talking to your colleagues and you and looking at the booth, that Philips seems to be taking a sort of bigger picture view of integrating all the things that a connected healthcare landscape makes possible. Is that the way you think about it?
Very much so, and thank you for asking. In the end, it's not about technology. I know that's a tough thing to say here at HIMSS, but it's not about technology. It's about the patient, it's about the person, it's about the consumer who is supposed to have a healthier life, and it's about our customers, the health providers. So technology is still an enabler, And we are taking a very holistic view, integrating the needs from the hospital, but also from the individual persons, from the people, from the consumers across the entire health continuum, starting with prevention, healthy living, to diagnostics, to treatment, and then all the way back to the home.
But even in the sense of the actual products, you have both analytic products and you also have products that are right at the patient's bedside, or actually literally on the patient, which seems to me to be something that other companies haven't been able to accomplish. It's really quite impressive. Talk a little bit about that way of integrating the analytics and the measurement stuff.
You're absolutely right, and I do believe that's a competitive advantage of Philips. We are at the last inch. We are there where the data is generated. And if, again, you take the customer perspective, and I've been talking to lots of caregivers, I haven't had a single one who said, oh, I can't wait for more data.
Yeah.
Because for them, data is bureaucracy, it's time that takes them away from what they like to do most, spending time with sick patients, right? Really caring for them. So it has to be data that's meaningful and that's at their fingertips in the very moment when they make a clinical decision and when they help a patient. And to be there, understand the consumer side from one part of our company, but really being there where the data is generated in that very point is differentiating for Philips, and I'm excited to be in the position to shape the future along these lines.
So you're actually gathering the data and also analyzing the data, which gives you the capability to sort of understand what the clinician is most going to really want to use.
Very much so, and we are not just analyzing it for the sake of analyzing.
Yeah.
We very much take the perspective, and all our tools include lots of customer feedback input from the very beginning, where they say what would be meaningful.
Right.
So it's about easy dashboard, it's about traffic lights, it's about clinical decision support, that it's practical. Again, you don't have caregivers who say, give me lots of more data.
Yeah.
You know, go and look in the EMR system, you'll find it somewhere. That's scary to them. They want something that facilitates their work and gives them more time for the patients.
So on the one hand, the nurse, the doctor, the person right there with the patient wants to have their work facilitated, but from the hospital or the medical system's point of view, there really is a business case for monitoring. Talk about that and how they integrate the two things.
Well, from what a hospital cares about is clinical outcome, and the better you are with continuous monitoring and alerting, the better for the clinical outcome. The second thing is about efficiency, and if you can see deterioration early, you prevent people coming to the ICU, where it's very expensive as well, and where the length of stay once you're in the ICU is much, much longer. So there's very much an efficiency case to be made as well for continuous monitoring.
Yeah, and so given all this, in your new role, what would you say your big picture priorities are going to be?
So big topic for us in Philips is personalized care. So really bring the patients in the middle of the discussion. So it's not just about the hospital. It's very much about the personal decision making, the tracking, the wellness of a patient before they come to the hospital or after they leave the hospital. It's about data continuity in this entire process. So this patient doesn't only need access to their own data, but also interaction with the caregivers and with their families as well. So allowing that connectivity, and then improving within the hospital, but also in home care, the workflows for a more efficient, more focused care delivery.
So the outcomes matter both in the general ward, hospital environment, and the home in order to, so in other words, if you're looking at it again from the standpoint of the hospital system or whoever's ultimately paying the bills, the more you can take what's happening in the home or on the arm, both, and also what's happening in the bed, in the hospital where you have monitoring systems, that is just a vastly improved efficiency landscape then, right?
Yeah, it starts with the triaging. Who actually has to go to a hospital?
Right.
And there is no case to be made to come to a hospital to get your blood pressure.
Right.
Or to follow up or to get your temperature.
Yeah.
It's completely inefficient, not just for the hospital, also for the individual person. So it's about triaging who comes to the hospital. And then within the hospital, if you think about the crowded emergency departments, who is sickest, who needs to go to, let's say, the cath lab right away, and who is somebody who is just there for a check and can leave immediately.
Right.
So segmenting and triaging the patient flow is very, very critical.
Talk a little bit about the Guardian product. What is that, and how does it fit into this landscape?
Okay, maybe before I go into the product, the Guardian is a solution which is focusing in the first step on a general ward. So that's how it works. Right now in a general ward, patients are not continuously monitored. You have a patient-caregiver ratio, which is 1:6 or 1:8 or sometimes even 1:10, very different from the ICU where you have 1:1, right? And patients are not continuously monitored, but there are spot checks. Nurses coming every 2, 3, 4 hours, taking your vital signs, but lots can happen in between. So lots of people, lots of patients deteriorate in the general ward, actually 1 out of 6. And at the same time, if you have a heart failure in the general ward, you have an 80% chance of dying in the United States, right?
Wow.
So it's a very risky area for you to be. So the idea is that we have to get to continuous monitoring and even more predictive analytics to make sure that you know up front if such a deterioration takes place so that the failure for rescue doesn't happen that often. So how does it work? One is a biosensor, which is this little thing. You put it up here, and it continuously measures the key most vital signs.
And that stays on you for days,
yes,
right?
Yes, for the length of your stay. Then that data is... Cool, light, yeah, suits you.
It goes on here, okay.
That data
Show
is
and tell,
transferred to the Guardian system. And the Guardian uses the early warning system of the hospital to indicate what situation the patient is in and to also alert the caregivers and the rapid response team if needed for the next steps. And that way we can predict by taking all the data together deterioration 6 to 8 hours before it happens. So if there's a change in respiratory rate combined with the temperature, and the temperature might still be in the normal range, but in the combination with the change of respiratory rate, that is a very strong indication of a cardio event. And then 6 to 8 hours before that cardiac event happens, the nurse gets alerted.
You know, for me as a technology journalist who thinks a big picture about how technology's changing society and just getting more and more into health, it's almost amazing that we don't already have continuous monitoring of patients in the hospital. So it's exciting that finally you're doing something like that. But how soon do you think we can get to a level where that becomes routine?
I think very quickly.
Yeah.
Because there are all the benefits. There are benefits for the patients. They can move mobile. It's also less hospital-acquired infection risk, because it's single use. And complete mobility, freedom for the patients all the way to the home, because there's no reason to limit that to the hospital. So from the peace of mind perspective from the patients and the mobility, it's great. Also activating a patient, which is very important in the general ward, gets supported because they're not cabled up anymore. And from the caregiver, what better can there be than knowing all the time who are your sickest patients and what the next risks are. It's a tremendous stress, and I've spent quite some time with caregivers in this situation. If you have to look during the night as a junior nurse after 10 patients and you don't have the continuous data and you don't know what to do. So really having this support, again, we are not taking the clinical decisions, but we are providing all the information for the caregivers, is from the caregiver perspective great. And from the hospital, the more people you can keep out of the ICU and treat early, that's a big efficiency gain.
And one of the themes of our discussion is safety. So clearly that is how you achieve it in large part, right? I mean, talk a little bit about safety per se.
Yeah. So safety is limiting the failure of rescue, right? Patients are safe if their data is known by the people who support them all the time and they can act upon it. That's how safety is defined from a patient perspective, and that's what we are providing.
You know, one of the things that comes up a lot as these systems get more and more sophisticated in the general ward, and I know it came up when I was at the RSNA conference because it's an issue for radiologists even, is this question of as the computers and the automated systems become more sophisticated, people are worried that they may not any longer be necessary. How do you feel about this issue of whether we're going to still need the people in the ward helping out the patients?
This is a technology that's not replacing people. The final clinical decision is always with the doctor, is always with the caregiver, right? No doubt about that one. But it's enabling, it's supporting, and it's making the life easier. And for me, the final proof is always the caregiver. I'm not talking to the CEO and say, can we get rid of the nurses? Wouldn't that be efficient? But it's a caregiver who has to come back with the point of, yes, that actually helps my life.
Yeah.
That allows me to focus more. Because there's a lot of care you give to the patient which technology can't do. And in my view, will never be able to do. It's a human business we are in. It's not a computerized approach.
So, you know,
we are still treating humans.
We don't have people walking around hospital wards saying, give me more big data, but your approach is that the data properly applied and delivered at the point where it really can be used is going to make the work of the individual with the patient more effective and not unnecessary, just lead to healthier people in the end.
Exactly, and they very much appreciate it. So we have Guardian rolled out in close to 100 hospitals in the United States, now going global, and the feedback is just phenomenal. People are really, really excited about it, customers, so we are really scaling it up right now. And we get great feedback also about the clinical parts and the early warning systems, which differ between hospitals.
Right.
And we can be very flexible on the adjustment. And there's a feedback loop and learning also for their workflows, which hospitals are very much, and caregivers very much appreciating.
So following up on that last thing you said, obviously when we think about where technology is going to take us as these systems evolve, it's the predictive analytics are just going to get better and better. Does that make sense?
They're going to get better and better, and they need to get more and more practical. Because again, clinical analytics somewhere in the cloud, which can be read by IT professionals, is not helpful. Yeah. You need it to be predictive, you need it to be there at the point of care, and you need to have caregivers and also patients to look at the data and immediately understand for their level what is relevant information they can act upon it. So besides getting more data in, getting better data in, getting faster, this practicality and use approach is very important.
Yeah, this issue of the steady improvement of AI and how predictive technologies generally are improving is really, I think, one of the central issues in technology. Anybody who saw Mark Zuckerberg's massive letter the other day about what's happening with Facebook, this is exactly what he's focusing on, how AI is going to allow more and more accurate prediction of what's happening and what things mean. And it seems like the same thing that you're working on. So I find that very exciting.
Yeah, very much so.
One of the things that's interesting also is in your new job, before you were doing patient care, but now that's part of what you're doing. You're now doing the whole connected care and healthcare informatics business for Philips. Talk about how all that stuff fits together. Is interoperability of all those systems something that you are going to be putting a heavy priority on?
It totally fits together, and that's really independent of my job, because again, it's back to the customers. When you talk to customers, they don't think department by department. They don't think hospital and home anymore. They don't think Philips organization is set up. But they think about the continuous flow of patients and the patient pathway. So if you have a cardiology patient, he has a heart attack at the home, it is how you transfer the data already there while the patient is in the ambulance to the emergency department. How you do the triaging. How you transfer that to the cath lab, so by the time the patient is at the cath lab, all the diagnostic has been done, the EMR check has been done, and the clinical decision support has been given. how that data is then transferred once the patient is in the ICU and in the general ward, and linked to the data systems, and then all the way home. How is it transferred into nutrition advice, into activity advice?
Even nutritional, things like that.
All the way. So
Wow.
I think it's a fully continuous system. And what we are doing as Philips is very much embracing it and driving it throughout. And the strength comes from us understanding the medical side very well, because we are in critical care. We are, as you said, where the data is happening. You know, not in the back, not somehow in the cloud, but here and there at the moment the data is being generated with our monitors. But we are also in the consumer side.
Yeah.
You know, since 100 years we have a consumer business. We very much understand how consumers take, how humans feel, and that's sometimes not the same view as the medical world might have. And that's important to understand. To give you one radical example, there are people who don't want to be treated, right, who say, I chose not to enter a hospital. I know my health could be improved, but it's my personal decision at this point of time not to be treated. How do you still support that person? How do you still get medical device? How do you respect that rather than saying, well, it's not part of our system, so we can't deal with it? That deep consumer understanding is very unique for Philips.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the way we started, that having both the back-end analytics, the cloud technologies, and the technologies right there sticking to the patient's body is a unique span of capabilities that Philips has, which I think may really give you the ability to move forward with that sort of holistic understanding more rapidly.
Yep.
What haven't I asked you that we should have talked about in terms of understanding where Philips is going with all of these businesses?
So you're the journalist, you're asking the questions.
Well, one of the great journalistic questions is to ask what we didn't ask, though.
Well, at least an area I'm also very passionate about is the ICU. So we talked a lot about the general ward. In the ICU, on a more advanced level, the same thing is happening. So with our Intelligence portal, we are doing the same thing, triaging the patients in terms of making very visible in an organ-based dashboard, really showing the caregivers which patient is sickest, what the treatment history has been, linking it back to the EMR data, to the clinical data, but also to the big data of comparable patients, and leading that to clinical decision support. So while we talked about general ward and the way to the home, it is very much the case also for the acute areas.
Yeah, and you mentioned dashboards. It's interesting walking around the booth. Many of the products that and services that you're showing here have some kind of quite innovative interface to the data, which I found quite exciting to look at.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, when we talk about the merge of consumers and healthcare space, it's also happening for the caregivers, right? We have young doctors who grew up completely digital, right? That's the next generation of doctors who are there right now, our customers, and they don't accept a paper-based approach anymore.
Right.
They have information in their private life at their fingertips all the time, and they don't understand why the second they walk into the hospital, they're forced to transfer data with a pencil and a pen from one sheet to another. It doesn't make sense for them.
Well, some ways it's even worse for the patient because they live a life digitally and then they come into the hospital and they're confronted with paper and they say, whoa, that's really scary.
Who hasn't experienced that?
Nobody
I think
wants
all
that.
of us have.
Well, Carla, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great talking to you, and
great.
Congratulations again on your new job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The best. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for joining us as well. Thank you to you both. We have a great lineup once again of speakers and presentations throughout the week. If you'd like to offer comments or ask questions about this session, you can join the discussion at Twitter if you tweet at Philips Live From with the hashtag HIM17. We also have these schedules that I mentioned with everything going on in the booth this week. A lot of great stuff. Next up at noon, we have Precision Medicine and Oncology Needs a Real-Time Healthcare Platform. And so we hope you'll come back for that one. If anyone is looking for opportunities this week, now that Carla has been named our CEO, we've got some openings in other places here, I guess. So our HR people are here, Colin and Justin. Actually, they might be over at the career fair. So if you'd like to find out more about joining the Philips team, the career fair is at CF23 at the Hyatt today. So come on back, or you can talk to them tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.